they say a lasting house answers an old riddle. Is strength born of speed, or of waiting for the earth to reveal its face? And the village gathered that morning to test its ears. Curiosity hung like fog above the river. Hear this now, and follow the first footsteps that set a question into motion. Two apprentices, one named Iran and one named Mara, stood at the edge of the square and felt the riddle like a weight in their palms, each imagining a house that would carry their names to the next generation. The choice they would make was simple to an observer, but heavy in practice, and the path ahead shimmered with promise and doubt. An elder, who had seen roofs fall and trees outlive kings, spoke in a voice like dry leaves and said that ground reveals its truth in seasons, not in hours, and that a house built without listening would not answer the songs of wind and rain. Some say the elder carried the memory of floods in his bones. His words would pull at the edges of patience in both young hearts. Mara walked the land, feeling the soil with the palms of her hands, counting the snail trails and listening for the whisper of roots beneath, and she chose her plot where the bedrock breathed steady beneath shallow soil, deciding to wait while she learned every layer. The world around her hushed as she marked stones and planted small stakes, patient as a woman who knows that growth is a long conversation. Iran, eager for the telling of his name, chose the lower meadow where the earth felt loose and quick to shape, believing a swift house would bring swift shelter and honor, and he raised beams and thatch with joyful haste across a summer of applause. Yet there was a quiet thing he ignored, the river's small moods and the soft settling that comes unseen, a hush he would only hear later. Seasons turned. Mara's plot saw slow progress as stones were set and foundations kissed by rain and frost, while Aaron's roof gleamed and laughter spilled from its open windows, and the village began to name both houses in their stories. The promise of each home sat like a seed beneath different suns, waiting to be tested. When the first hard wind arrived, it was not meant to break homes, but to find the small seams in hastily joined boards and the quiet gaps left by haste, and Aaron found the shutters balking while Mara tightened her stones and watched the world. The wind taught a soft lesson that some strength is only found in slow joining, and neighbors stepped in to mend where they could. Pride and resourcefulness kept Aaron's house from ruin that season as neighbors lent rope and hands, and songs were sung about mending and clever fixes. Yet each patch marked a place where the original choice still whispered. Some say pride is the loudest neighbor to haste. It will applaud a quick repair, but rarely ask about the ground beneath. Mara stacked stone upon stone through frost and thaw, letting each settle and listening for the faintest groan from the earth, and in the hush of winter she set a cornerstone that would guide walls for years to come. The villagers watched the slow rising with a respect that is reserved for those who labor like elders, and children traced the fresh mortar with curious fingers. The river, small and smug in summer, began to speak another language as spring rains gathered in distant hills, and elders muttered about years when it took what it wanted without asking. Aaron thought the river a neighbor easily appeased. Mara regarded it as a teacher whose moods must be learned and accounted for. Small failures crept into Aaron's house. A floorboard bowed. A corner sank a finger's breadth, subtle things that gathered like dust until they could no longer be ignored, and each fix took time his impatience did not grant. He learned a heavy truth, that quick applause can hide slow undoing, and his nights grew restless with the thought of what would come. Neighbors watched both homes as the seasons tightened, gossip soft as moss spreading, and some began to whisper about what legacy might outlast the hurry of youth, while others still sang Iran's house for the warmth it had brought. The village was learning that choices are stories written over years, and each story grows heavier with each season's test. That spring the sky broke open with a storm that rolled like a drumming fist, and the river rose not by inches but by the measure of years unleashed in weeks. and the village felt its breath change into a great force. This was not a test of mending, it was the body's moment of truth, when choices met consequence and the world named its judgment. When the river lunged, Iran's meadow became a mirror of force, and his house, light and quick, groaned as its shallow roots were pulled, and the ground beneath shifted like loose cloth, and despite valiant effort, much of his work was taken or bent beyond simple repair. In the wreckage, he saw the cost of a name built on haste, and grief came to him as a slow, heavy guest. Mara's house, braided to bedrock and set like a calm island, felt the same storm in its skin, but held because each stone had been made to speak with the earth and accept its weight, and the river beat itself out on the organized strength of patience. Some say the rocks themselves hummed with approval. Others only remember the hush after the worst passed, and the house still standing like an answered prayer. When the storm eased, the village moved like survivors from a long night, tallying what remained and what had been lost, and hands reached to help without ceremony. Some repaired, some rebuilt, and some sat with the quiet understanding that not all losses buy new wisdom. The village learned that weather will visit all, but the way one prepared for it determines what will be left to tell the tale. Faced with ruin, Iran could have cursed the delay of foundation, or he could have learned the slow craft. Pride first pushed him to show speed by raising a new shelter, but sorrow taught him a more patient lesson, and he began hesitantly to help Mara mend and lay deeper stones. There was a turning in him like a river changing course after it meets a rock. It would shape the rest of his days. The elder who spoke at the first gathering walked among the ruined rafters and the standing stones and said quietly that wealth is not only what you hold, but what you have made to hold across storms, and the village took that saying into its brand of wisdom for children to come. Thus the turning was not just for the two builders, but for a community that now weighed time differently. Years passed, and the village grew less eager to applaud speed alone, for the children had learned to ask where stones had been set and how deep a foundation slept, and Aaron, now steady, learned to listen as he placed each stone beside Mara's, making a house that began to carry their joint names. The quiet work of joining would produce a harvest of years rather than a single season's applause. The house became a place where lessons were told by hearthlight. The elders spoke of seasons, Mara of patience, and Aaron of the price of haste and the riches of repair, and their tale was folded into nursery rhymes that carried meaning and method. Parents pointed to the stones and said to children that patience is not idle. It is deliberate work that compounds across years. Generations came and went. The house weathered small storms and long winters because its foundation had been chosen with care, and within its walls grain was stored, stories were told, and the village learned to invest the way Mara had, patiently with attention to soil and season. Growth in this place was measured not in speed, but in the quiet accumulation of careful acts. Some say a new riddle formed, not whether a house will stand, but what kind of steward will tend it, and families learn to think in seasons rather than headlines, choosing investments of time and stone that would carry them through many rains. The question turned inward. What habits do we teach our hands and our children when we choose how to build? At dusk, Mara and Aaron stood on the threshold and listened to the village breathing, a tapestry of small acts and patient labor, and each felt that what they had built was more than shelter, it was a choice turned into a lineage. They understood in a new way that foundations shape futures more than walls ever could. And so the house on solid ground lasted across generations, not by accident, but by the patient choosing of deep foundations, and the village kept this parable like seed in winter, a guide for those who would build and those who would save. Build slowly, and your work will carry you. Final lessons. Choose foundations that can weather seasons. Value slow compound growth over quick applause, and let patience be the hand that molds lasting wealth.